Welcome. Today, I want to come to talk with you about a topic that is very, very dear to my heart. And I want to come and talk to you about sexuality. And maybe this is an approach that is a little bit different than how a lot of people talk about it. So, for a long time, I haven't really shared all too much about this own part of my journey, as I have been really on my own journey of embodiment through what it means to reclaim my own sacred sensuality and sacred sexuality. And on the earlier stages of my own path, I've been deep into the whole field of Western Tantra and have been to Tantra festivals and all that. And I really distanced myself and started walking away from these fields because I felt that a lot of these places had a lot of distortion and weren't so organic in a lot of ways. And so I want to elaborate more on that. What do I mean about, being organic and everything like that? So there's quite a few things to understand, and it's going to be like a longer conversation. So I want to start sharing a few different aspects that are very relevant for me when talking about sexuality. And I feel a lot of times there is this very from the ego, from the lower self ego approach to sexuality, where it's very like still another layer of that same programming that, we live in society where, everything in sexuality is very based on performance in a very masculine linear way of connecting to our sexuality, and a very transactional kind of relationship only based on the physical experience, and a lot of times, about exploring deeper levels of pleasure and all that. And that's amazing. For sure we want to explore deeper levels of pleasure, but there is sort of that intersection point where it interweaves and correlates to different other aspects, because as the ancients used to understand, and this is really an aspect I want to dive into, is that our sexuality is our life force energy, right? So understanding that, how deep of a relationship it really is to our health, and really the relationship to our own body, our own vitality, and our sovereignty. And I just want to repeat those words. So it's about your own vitality, health, and sovereignty, not only physically, but as well spiritually. And this is why this has been the most, attacked area of our lives, and where it has been so shamed and so programmed, because that allows then other energies to infiltrate and to basically use and take our life force energy. When we are disconnected from our own life force energy and what it actually means and how it feels like to circulate life force energy through our body and through our system. And I just want to take some time to really elaborate on that, because in my opinion it's something so important, so we can really start to understand that relationship and how sacred and important that relationship is between our sexuality. So basically the force of creation that has created us, right? That is our force of creation, where we procreate and reproduce ourselves. But it always has been meant to be much more about than only procreation, and much more than about a transactional relationship for momentary pleasure, and how it has been, programmed so deeply into our society in modern days, and porn and everything, to be a way of release, right? Because a lot of times, and even for myself for such a long time. And this is actually part of why it took me so long to actually start coming to speak more about it publicly, because I went through a lot in my own sexuality, really a lot of things that I needed to process, and a lot of things that need to come into greater coherence and relationship with. And this is really that aspect that is so important to come into relationship with, because then it's when we can start slowly moving away from these old ways of programming that we have been programmed to, and especially if we look at, porn and everything, it has been really so indoctrinated in our minds to have a very mechanical approach to how we approach and live and experience our own sexuality. And this is really relevant because as we understand deeper interconnectedness energetically of our life force energy, well, it's like if you not are embodying and if you are not occupying your own life force energy and technology, so if you're not actually using your lower energy centers coherently to actually use these energies to bring them up into your higher centers and use them for, your own creations and to actually have more energy available for you to do the things in the world that you want to do, then where's the energy going? And this is something very common where it's rather like, okay, it rather drains you or it actually fuels you. But that fueling you actually, for a lot of us, where, we maybe went through a lot and have been part of and, programmed pretty much, it's really a path of cultivation and rewiring and remembering how sacred this technology is and what is really the purpose of using it as well. And there's another aspect I want to share here that is very relevant, is that, as we talk about and understand that we are multidimensional beings, there's a lot of siphoning that happens of the life force energy. So there's a lot of spirits, entities, and harvesting systems that actually, are designed to harvest that life force energy because they cannot generate that life force energy by themselves, right? That's the thing with darkness or lower dimensional entities, spirits, that they cannot sustain and create the energy by themselves, as they do not operate from a field of love and coherence. And that is why humanity has been so programmed and been so disconnected, so they actually can be so desensitized of their own body and their own sensations that they're then basically drawn into these lower impulses, right, were very primal impulses, and from there basically drain their energy. Because eventually we should not feel empty after having sex. And this is really important because this sort of ties in together with alchemical practices. And when you look into ancient cultures again, where they understand the life force energy and, how we used to practice these arts in ancient Egypt. And even, in Eastern philosophy, in Tantra and Taoism, there's always a relationship between your life force energy and your vitality. And understanding as well that through the sublimation, what is really the basis of a lot of the tantric practices, to know and learn how to sublimate the energies from your lower centers and your lower chakras into the higher chakras. So you actually can elevate these more denser energies and bring them into your higher centers. And once you bring them into your higher centers, you actually can use them to direct them as creativity, and as well something that happens in many of these alchemical practices is that you actually start nourishing your light body, right? So through the electromagnetic energy currents, what is the balance of your feminine and masculine energy? So the masculine, what is the electric principle, right? It's the mental, it's the electric principle, and the feminine, the magnetic principle. So when we bring through these alchemical practices our electromagnetic energy to dance together and to weave together and start sublimating and bringing them through our internal energy channels into our higher brain centers, there's an alchemical process that starts to happen. And when that alchemical process starts to happen, there's a big process of purification going on, because essentially the life force in you cannot rise, and these, different energetic phenomena of interference or different trauma or different things, they will interfere with your capacity and your ability to move life force energy through your body and actually use this life force energy for a greater purpose, where we remember that our pleasure is sacred, yes, but as well that energy is meant to be used for us, not only for our purposes that serve ourselves. So there gotta be a balance in order for you to truly achieve these higher states of consciousness, which really in the alchemical practices, especially from Egypt as I remember it, they are meant to serve the expansion of your consciousness, because it's the inner union between the masculine and the feminine that then gives birth to the Holy Sun. Or like in Egyptian mythology, it's Isis, Osiris, and the lovemaking of both of them, which is the feminine and the masculine, will give birth to Horus. And Horus is the highest state of consciousness that is achievable in this human body for you in this lifetime in Egyptian mythology. And so once you start understanding, there's really a process of purification internally, so you can actually use those energies. And once they reach the higher centers, they start to nourish the Ka body, which basically is your light body, or as well your spiritual body, right? It's your light body with basically how much light is stored in your light body is the connection and directly related to your connection to the divine, and is your access point in order as well to have greater health, greater vitality, and greater magnetism. Because the coherence of our light body, sometimes people are, well, why is all of this important? Well, having a coherent light body energy is very important. So for many things. So basically it's your own electromagnetic field or your auric field that you're nourishing. And the more coherent and aligned your auric field is, the easier you can manifest the things that you want. The easier you will have synchronicities happening in your life. The more easily and gracefully you can actually be guided towards the things that are good for you on a level of health, on whatever area of life. It basically is that inner protection where you are so radiant and stable in your own energy, where other energies do not waver you so much, where you're so clear on your own energy that other energies do not interfere with your energetic field or take you off your center. So this is a little bit about what I wanted to share. There's much more information that I will be sharing in the future to dive deeper into certain aspects of what I've been mentioning here. But I just wanted to start sharing a little bit more and opening a little this conversation about really understanding our sexuality, and really as well the relationship it has to our body, and really the biospiritual technology that our body is, and how we actually can, through alchemical practices, harvest and harness and cultivate this life force energy in order to, feel better internally, to magnetize so much more of all that what we want, and be so much more stable, centered, and grounded in ourselves as we expand through pleasure, but remind ourselves as well for the greater purpose of the sacredness of this technology. And this is really where I want to make the end note for this. What I'm sharing today is that there's a balance, like with everything in life. So it's really important to find that balance between why are you doing these alchemical practices? And not that there's anything wrong with wanting to have better sex and enjoying yourself better and having more pleasure in your life, which is amazing, which is surely how I started my own alchemical journey, and my journey with sexuality. Definitely that is where I was coming from. But as well, I wanted to share some other layers with you that sort of have been part of my own exploration in these last 4 years, 5 years, that I have been deeply exploring, healing, purifying, connecting with my sexuality on different levels, and learned a lot of different aspects that I feel are not so much talked about. And they are very crucial to really understand the relationship between embodying our own life force technology and the sovereignty that we can create in our health and in our life, for really owning our own energy, and from there consciously directing our own energy into that which we choose and wish to create. I would love to hear in the comments if there's anything that really spoke to you, or if there's any specific questions or anything that you would like to hear more about. Please let me know. Have a beautiful day. I love you. Mwah.